Music theory is incredibly hard to understand, maybe even impossible for most guitar players. You have to read thousands of books, and a master's degree is the absolute minimum requirement to even start out with all of this. Only the greatest of minds will ever be able to apply music theory effectively. All of these statements are completely wrong in my humble opinion. Since music theory is topping the Patreon wishlist at the moment, I want to show you 6 extremely powerful music theory exercises today that every guitar player should know. These workouts will change your playing forever. Let's do this. Before we continue, I need to share some shocking news. You guessed it, still around 70% of you amazing people are not subscribed to this channel. That means you sadly keep missing a lot of really important exercises. So make sure to subscribe right now to stay updated. That way you can finally officially join this guitar community that is dedicated to progress and getting better every single day. So what's the first skill you should master to immediately unlock the entire fretboard? The trick that changed everything for me is about connecting chords, scales and arpeggios effectively. We tend to look at chords, arpeggios and scales as completely different and separate topics, and I didn't understand their strong connection for a very long time. I'm sure you felt lost and frustrated at some point by studying endless chord sheets, scale diagrams and arpeggio shapes. This exercise will solve this problem for you. Let's dissect this workout now and find out why it's an absolute game changer. In step 1, I was just playing the basic E minor chord you're probably familiar with. E, the root, G, the minor third, and B, the perfect fifth. In step 2, I created a cool sounding arpeggio shape by just adding B and G again on the bottom. So now I know both the E minor chord for my riffs and an E minor arpeggio shape for my solos. In step 3, I added one more note, the minor 7th, to get an E minor 7th arpeggio. The shape remains the same and you can still see the basic chord we started out with highlighted in red. I'm just adding one more note for a more interesting arpeggio. And then in step 4, I added 3 more notes and get the full E minor scale for this position. And this is a great example of how I approach the fretboard nowadays. Please don't think of chords, scales and arpeggios as these abstract, completely separated topics. It's so helpful to break out of a chord into a short solo phrase without thinking in a scale box or jumping to a completely different location on the fretboard. When you practice like this, you will start to see arpeggio shapes and scales all around the chords you're playing, and this will make your life so much easier. Also, the tabs, guitar profiles and backing tracks I added for all of today's exercises on patreon.com/BERNTH will help you out greatly with mastering all of this. Speaking of arpeggios, let's say you want to accent chord shapes interestingly and melodically when you're improvising instead of just being trapped in a scale shape, playing it up and down constantly. Great news, I have a little magic trick for you concerning that. Here's a simple riff I want to shred over in the key of B flat minor. So I'm just playing the first 4 notes of the B flat minor scale. The full chords would be B flat minor, C diminished, D flat major and E flat minor. And those are also the exact arpeggios I want to play. If you don't know any arpeggio shapes yet, you can just start out by playing the root, third and fifth for all of these chords, like this. To make that more interesting, I can add the 7ths once again for level 2. And here's the promised magic trick. If you want to play bigger arpeggio shapes that cover the entire fretboard, you don't have to look them up on the internet. You can just move these exact notes to the next octave. Arpeggios usually consist out of just 3 or 4 notes that are repeated across the neck in different octaves. So once you understand their interval structure, you can easily extend them by just moving the notes to a lower or higher octave instead of learning hundreds of arpeggio shapes. Once again, make sure to study this with the files I made for you on patreon.com/BERNTH and you will unlock the fretboard in no time. The next trick is really simple but incredibly effective. If you want your guitar solos and songs to sound more unique and interesting, you don't have to go for extremely exotic and complicated scales right away. You can start by just spicing up what you already know. Most of you will be familiar with the C major pentatonic scale, consisting of the notes C, D, E, G, and A. Some of you might have also heard about the really interesting sounding Lydian scale, one of the major modes. Instead of moving to Lydian and the modes right away, you can just introduce the characteristic interval for Lydian, the sharp 4, to the major pentatonic scale. This way of thinking will really help you with understanding the sound and color of the modes instead of just learning the scale shapes and where to put your fingers on the neck. All popular modes like Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian or Mixolydian have one characteristic note that you can add to the classic pentatonic scale if you want to. This is a great method to start learning about the sound and color of each mode in the easiest and most practical way if you're already familiar with the pentatonic scale. Listen to how cool this simple pentatonic Lydian hybrid scale sounds like. Let's talk about the really important topic of improvisation next and how to immediately sound more professional. Please listen to the following 2 melodies and try to determine which one sounds better and why. So take number 2 is the clear winner for me personally. But why does it actually sound more melodic and sophisticated? I was simply working with more interesting notes. I was really just playing the root and perfect fifth over the chord in take number 1, the most boring sounding notes I could possibly pick for my melody. Let's check out the difference with take number 2. This looks and sounds so much better already. I was playing the major 2nd, minor 3rd, perfect 4th, major 6th and minor 7th. So I was basically avoiding the boring notes in the scale and this resulted in a much more satisfying melody. So next time when you are improvising, try to visualize the notes that you are playing on the neck and of course their relationship to the chords in the background. Please trust me on this will sound so much better right away than just aimlessly playing scale boxes up and down. Let's move back to the really important topic of chords for the next trick. I'd like to show you how to spice up really boring chord progressions easily. Please listen to how different those 2 takes sound. Two completely different worlds, right? But once again, I didn't do anything extremely complicated, special or difficult right here. I did add some more interesting notes, as you could see, but the biggest trick was just spreading out the notes of the chord voicings across the fretboard and across all the strings. This results in beautiful but simple chords that don't require tons of theory knowledge. Next time you write a riff or chord progression, just try to let the voicings breathe a bit and add more room in between the notes. It will sound much more interesting right away. In case that's too mellow and soft for you and you want more of the heavy stuff, I also have some really cool rock and metal riff tricks for you. I personally love to work with seventh chords, the so-called jazz chords, for my rock and metal riffs to really spice them up. Check out the following really basic power chord foundation and how I made it more interesting with those really unique sounding chords. I really love the dissonance and tension you get out of those amazing chords, and I think they should be used for rock and metal music much more often. These voicings mostly consist out of 4 notes, the root, 3rd, 5th and 7th, but I also added some tensions like the 9th to make them even more interesting. The biggest takeaway right here is that you can simply start with a basic foundation, like with the power chord riff I played at the beginning, and then you can gradually spice it up more and more by adding more details, like I demonstrated it with the second half of this example. I really hope that I could prove that music theory isn't that bad with today's video. By practicing today's exercises and concepts, you will easily take your theory foundation to a more professional level in a matter of weeks. And your sound and musicality will greatly benefit from that. Remember to subscribe right now so that you don't miss the next exercises, and leave a like in case you enjoyed this video. And also don't forget to download all of your really helpful files for today's video on patreon.com/BERNTH. I will see you again next week. All the best and have a lot of fun practicing until then.